गणपतिं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनः शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम्। ॐ श्रीमहागणाधिपतये नमः। ॐ वृषभं चर्षणीनां विश्वरूपमदाभ्यं बृहस्पतिं वरेण्यं। ॐ तद्विष्णोः परमं पदं सदा पश्यन्ति सूरयः दिविभचक्षुरा ततम्। ॐ श्रीं ह्रीं ऐं महालक्ष्म्यै कमलधारिण्यै सिंहवासिन्यै नमः। ॐ श्रीं ह्रीं ज्योतिर्ब्राह्माय नमः। ॐ श्रीं ह्रीं मेधादक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। Can everybody say after me? Hare Ramakrishna 3 times. Om Hare Ramakrishna, Hare Ramakrishna, Hare Ramakrishna. Before we start a new topic, I just want to start a new practice of doing something every day. I told you earlier that we have the Panchanga, the 5 limbs of time, Tithi, Vara, Nakshatra, Yoga and Karana. These are the 5 classifications of time. And I told you that these represent the Panchabhutas, the 5 elements. And I told you that Tithi is Jalatattva, water. Tithi is of watery nature, shows water basically holds everything together. It basically lends fluidity. So Tithi is important when you are looking at prosperity, well-being, sense of happiness, sense of well-being, sense of connectedness. That is shown by the Tithi. So for those matters, I told you that Chipala is very important. And I told you that Yoga is basically Akasha Tattva, ethery nature. So if you look at the Yoga that is running at a given time, that tells you the nature of the ethery element. And ethery element is that which does not exist specifically anywhere, but it exists always, everywhere. It is that which binds all the other 4 elements together. That is Akasha, space, ether. So Yoga, I told you, is the ether element. And I told you that Karana is basically the Ati element, the Bhutatva. I told you that weekday, the Vara, is basically Agni Tattva, fiery nature. It is that which is basically the life force. Pardon me? Longevity, vitality, life force. That is the life force. And I told you that Nakshatra is basically, which Tattva is it? Vayu Tattva, yes. Vayu Tattva. That means airy element. Nakshatra shows the airy element of the nature of time. If you look at time, the 5 natures of time, the airy nature of time is shown by Nakshatra. So I told you that if you are looking at what is the role of air? It is that which gives you strength, which makes you move. It's basically that which gives you kinetic energy. Fire is basically the transformative potential, and water and earth are basically, they are more towards potential energy, whereas air is kinetic energy. It is that which sets you in motion. If you are thinking of something, if you are perturbed, the fact that you are perturbed, that is basically Vayu. Or if you are able to think, if you are here, but you are able to think of, let's say, somebody in India, your thoughts are traveling there, that is Vayu. So Vayu is that which sets things in motion, which keeps things moving. It is the kinetic energy. So it has good nature as well as bad nature. On the positive side, Vayu is that which makes you move, which makes you do things, which gives you energy and force to do things. On the other hand, if it is disturbed, if the airy nature is disturbed, if it is vitiated, then there can be a lot of disturbance, a lot of tension, a lot of anxiety. All those are also coming from Vayu Tattva. So if you see that, let's say somebody comes to you and says, I'm not happy at work, I'm very unhappy at work, and you want to see why. if you look at the 10th house and all the planets, etc., and if you look at the muhurta in which the time at which he joined the job, if you look at the nature of the muhurta, if you look at all the panchanga elements, and if you see the strength, let's say everything is fine, but Vayu Tattva is bad. Let's say nakshatra is, he chose a very bad nakshatra, let us say. He chose, let's say, Ashresha, the nakshatra ruled by the snake. And let's say the nakshatra lord is also not well placed. So, if you have any problems related to nakshatra, there are certain mantras given for the deities of nakshatra. So what I want to do is, sometime back somebody asked me, can we read the nakshatra suktam? So I can't read the whole thing in one class, but what I will do is, I'll take 1 or 2 nakshatras every day. We will record the mantras so that they are in the MP3 for people to refer to later. So there is something known as nakshatra suktam. It's basically mantras, Vedic chants for the praising the deities of various nakshatras. Each nakshatra has a deity. And before I read a couple of mantras for today, I want you to understand how to use them. First of all, there are nakshatras for various matters. Suppose somebody has problems in career. If you go to this main longitude window and if you click the pop-up menu, there is something called special taras / nakshatras from moon. If you click on that, these are the special nakshatras from moon. There are some special nakshatras that are defined, which we haven't covered so far. Basically, the nakshatra occupied by moon is Janma nakshatra, as you know, as you can guess. And the 10th nakshatra from there, if you keep counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that, if you count the 10th nakshatra from the star occupied by moon in the natal chart, that is known as Karma nakshatra. Karma nakshatra is basically, can you guess what it would mean? Yeah, good guess. Karma is basically the work that you do, basically your activity. But we are talking about nakshatra, we are talking about moon star. So this is basically how you apply your mind to your work. So that's what this shows. So this is Karma nakshatra. And here you see that Ashwini is, right now, moon is in Ashwini. So the 10th nakshatra from there would be Magha. If you count Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, Rohini, Mrgasira, Ardra, Punarvasu, Pushyami, Aslesha, Magha. So Magha is the 10th star. So that becomes the Karma nakshatra. Similarly, there is a list. There is a Samudayika nakshatra, Sanghatika nakshatra, and the meanings are also kind of given here. Naitra nakshatra, Desha nakshatra, etc. Abhisheka nakshatra. So all these nakshatras you can get from here. And if somebody has career problems, take the Karma nakshatra. Propitiate the deity of that nakshatra. If somebody is, let's say, very anxious, very tense, he doesn't have a good mental state, can you guess which would be the good nakshatra? Manasa nakshatra. It is basically the overall state of mind. Manasa nakshatra would be the best nakshatra. If you are not sure for what purpose, in general, Janma nakshatra is the seed of all nakshatras. It is the seed because moon is in that nakshatra. So just give Janma nakshatra. If you are not sure, select Janma nakshatra. Or let's say there is a politician and he wants to be elected in the next election, or he is already elected but he doesn't feel as though he has power. He feels as though things are not in his control. People are running all over him. So for him to feel more powerful, you probably want to take Abhisheka nakshatra. So like that you can select the nakshatra and you can propitiate the deity of that nakshatra by using the mantra of that nakshatra. And what you have to remember here is, these nakshatras are based on the 28 star chart. These are not based on the 27 nakshatras. So Abhijit is counted as a nakshatra here in this particular case. And secondly, apart from these, you can also look at the nakshatras occupied by various planets. Suppose, let us say, somebody has a nice Raja Yoga. Somebody has, let's say, 9th and 10th Lord together. And let's say that 9th Lord and 10th Lord who are together are in Anuradha nakshatra. Take the Lord of Anuradha. Or let's say somebody has, let's say, Hamsa Yoga. He has Jupiter in one house in exaltation, let's say in the 4th house. Aries Lagna and Jupiter in Cancer. So if Lagna is Aries and Jupiter is in Cancer, he would be in the 4th house, which is a quadrant. And because he is exalted, he gives a yoga called Hamsa Yoga, Mahapurusha Yoga. It makes him one of the 5 kinds of great people. But let's say that yoga is not functioning well. That yoga is basically, there is, let's say, the nakshatra occupied by Jupiter is, let's say, Asresha. Jupiter is in Ashesha nakshatra. So because he is in a nakshatra ruled by Sarpa, and Jupiter is not really a favorite of Sarpa, he doesn't have nakshatra bala. Let's say another planet, let's say Rahu is in Ashesha, he would be very powerful because that nakshatra is ruled by snake, and that is to Rahu's liking. Rahu's nature and the nature of the nakshatra deity are similar. So there is a kind of harmony, synergy between them. So it will work fine for Rahu. But let's say Jupiter is in that nakshatra. Jupiter is in Ashesha. He is not so powerful. So irrespective of the other strength of Jupiter, just that strength can mean that Jupiter has problems relating to Vayu-tattva. Jupiter's strength at that particular time when the person is born has Vayu-tattva related problems. So in that case, you may want to take the nakshatra occupied by Jupiter and take the DT and propitiate. So like this, you can choose the nakshatra occupied by an important planet in the chart, or an important set of planets in the chart, or just Moose nakshatra or one of the special nakshatra. So once you take that nakshatra, to propitiate, you can take in the nakshatra suktam, there is one stanza for each nakshatra. Take the stanza corresponding to the nakshatra that you want to propitiate. The thing is, sometimes everything may look fine, but there may be lot of weakness, there may be lot of tension, lot of inbuilt tension and anxiety presented by a particular planet in the chart. So even if there are other good results, that planet will not give its results unless the person goes through a lot of anxiety and tension. Unless a lot of things move, the planet will not move. The planet will not give its results. So in such cases, you are better off propitiating the nakshatra sukta. In other words, what I am trying to say is, more than the tithi, more than the karana, it is the nakshatra that is the first thing. Actually, if you ask me, the first thing is, if you look at the way the creation was made, the first thing that was created was space, akasha. And then what was created was Vayu. And then other things came into being, fire, water, earth, etc. So if you want to strengthen something, first you have to strengthen the space with it, the ether, the akasha. Without it, nothing exists. And once that is there, if Vayu is not really calm and stable, there is either no strength or there is too much of strength. In other words, there is a lot of instability. So you need space, and you need Vayu, and you need the Vayu to be very relaxed, very calm. And then you can put fire in it, you can put water in it, you can put earth in it, so that all the five elements come into being. So if somebody is feeling very anxious, tense, or if somebody is scary, let's say somebody comes and tells you, I've been out of job for a long time, it's not working for me, I'm trying but it's not working. Maybe there is a big Vayu-tattva related problem. That is why things are not being able to set in motion properly. So Vayu-tattva is very important. Nakshatras are very important. And if you look at crux of Vedic astrology, not crux of Vedic astrology, the book called Vedic Remedies in Astrology by Pandit Sanjay Rath. In that book, there are some mantras given for nakshatra. Those are simple mantras. If you are not inclined towards the Vedic mantras, if you just want Om Brahaspataye Namah, that kind of mantras. Om Brahaspataye, I pray to you. Oh Aryaman, I pray to you, like that. If you want that kind of mantra, there are simple mantras given in that book. You can use those. But the Vedic mantras have a strength of their own. Yes. Yeah.
In this example, Ashesha is the nakshatra.
Nakshatra owned by?
Because Ashesha is the one in Cancer.
Right.
So how do we know that this nakshatra is owned by the particular planet?
Particular deity, you mean? Yes. Which nakshatra is ruled by which planet, you know from the list, from the Vimshottari Dasha table. But it also depends on the nakshatra Dasha you are using. Under the Vimshottari Dasha scheme, Ashwini is ruled by Ketu, Bharani is ruled by Venus, Kritika is ruled by Sun, and so on. So that you can find from any book, including my book. But that list is actually secondary. It's not that important because it's only Vimshottari Dasha scheme. If you use Ashtotri Dasha, for example, the nakshatras ruled by each planet will be different. In addition to all these things, which are Dasha specific, there are some rulerships that are given that are basically like standard, irrespective of the Dasha you are using. Ashwini, for example, is ruled by Agni. the deity known as Agni, which is the deity of fire. If you take, for example, Jyothishya, it is ruled by, I think, Indra. Jyothishya is ruled by Indra. Punarvasu is ruled by Aditi. Pushyami is ruled by Brahaspati, Jupiter. Ashesha is ruled by Sarpa, the snake god, the god of snakes. You can get that list from my book actually. If you have my book, Vedic Astrology and Integrated Approach, in the very beginning there is a table.
So my question is,
What is your question?
how do I know that which nakshatra is particular planet? You say that we have to identify.
Oh, I see. Let's say Jupiter, I was saying Jupiter is in Ashesha in a particular chart,
Yeah.
and there is a problem. Jupiter is in a very bad nakshatra. Just take Ashesha then.
How do we?
Oh, you can see here, Jupiter, Swati. Mercury is in Anuradha. So if you look here, you will see the nakshatra occupied by that planet. This is just based on the angle, the longitude of the planet. The zodiac is divided into 27 or 28 parts. Actually, the only tricky thing is here, the nakshatra reported here is basically based on the 27 nakshatra scheme. So if you see a planet in Uttarashadha, you may have to do a little bit of math to figure out if it is in Abhijit or in Uttarashadha. So that's the only tricky part. Yeah, there is a mantra. This Nakshatra Soktam has 28 mantras, including Abhijit. So you don't have to worry about Abhijit. The only worry is to correctly identify if a planet is in Uttarashadha or Abhijit or Shravan. That's the only worry. Okay. So what I will do from today onwards is at the beginning of the class after our prayer, I'll just take one or two nakshatras and read their mantras. You don't have to read it along with me, but you can listen later and try to practice it. The thing with Vedic mantras is there is a swaram, which is basically intonation. Certain sounds are pronounced down, certain sounds are pronounced with stress, etc. So there is a way you pronounce it, and I myself am not perfect, but I just try to be as perfect as I can. And if you practice, you can be as perfect as you can. And if you read these Vedic mantras with the correct intonation, they have a lot of effect. They are very powerful. So if you have any career problems, just take your Karma Nakshatra blindly. Read that mantra as many times as you can every day. It will have a huge impact on the way your career is going, especially on the way you are perceiving your career. You had a question? Yeah. Yeah.
Indra is the Lord, but Rahu is the first person.
Yeah.
So when you fortificate the mantra, that Indra's mantra,
Yeah.
or Indra.
This is Indra's mantra. This is actually Indra's mantra and Swati's mantra. Agni's mantra and Kritika mantra. It's basically a mantra for the deity as the ruler of that nakshatra. It's not a generic mantra. For Indra, there are so many generic mantras. But here is basically for that particular nakshatra. Indra, the lord of that nakshatra. It is a mantra for it. So the first mantra I will read is, yeah.
After you read the couple of mantras,
Unfortunately, that is the problem. I also don't know for sure the meanings of these mantras. I have some vague idea. Maybe in future, maybe after a couple of years when I am more comfortable, I can also tell you the meaning. For now, even if you don't know the meaning, as far as Vedic mantras are concerned, you just say them, you will get a lot of effect. So for now, just repeat them. I have some idea. Some of these are Vedic Sanskrit Vedic grammar is a different grammar compared to the contemporary Sanskrit. I have some idea, but sometimes I am not fully sure. Sometimes actually I am not even sure if what is given in books is right. For example, they say Devasuvide Dadhatu. I am not sure if it's Dadatu or Dadhatu. Dadatu means may he give. Dadhatu could be a corruption because in a language called Tamil, they don't have separate letters for da, dha, ta, tha, especially now. So it may be a corruption that came because of it. So I don't know if what is written as Dadhatu is actually Dadhatu or Dadatu. But the thing is, sometimes I can correct based on the meaning. But Dadhatu also has a meaning. Dadhatu and Dadhatu both have a meaning. So I'm not sure which one it is. So like that, sometimes I'm not even sure if the thing is correct. There may be some errors still. So until I'm fully confident, I can't share the meaning, but I will just read them, and I can tell you that even if you read them as they are, even in their imperfect state, Vedic mantras are so powerful. They say that if a donkey reads a book containing Veda mantras, the donkey gets self-knowledge, they say. I mean, it's an exaggeration, obviously. You don't get self-knowledge by eating a book. Obviously, it's a self-exaggeration. But it tells you that these mantras are so powerful. If you don't understand what it means, but if you select one mantra, you keep doing it a few hours every day, you will get self-knowledge. You will really get self-knowledge. So that is the power of Vedic mantras compared to other mantras. So I will start with the, yes.
What is the message? How do you, the first star is the Kashara, then it's a carrier. You still look at your repeater position for the stars or
Yes, I told you, you missed actually. You just came. There are things known as special nakshatra. From moon nakshatra, you count the 10th star to find out about career. From moon star, you count the 26th star to find out about the coronation of the person, the power that the person enjoys, Abhishek nakshatra. Interestingly, this is also the nakshatra that binds one. Power is basically what binds you. This shows how free you are or how bound you are. That is what the Abhishek nakshatra shows. So, like this, there are several nakshatras. Vainashika nakshatra, it shows destruction. If you are feeling like you lost everything in life, if you are being destroyed, if you feel destruction around you, then take Vainashika nakshatra. Maybe Vainashika nakshatra is being activated by some planet whose aspecting is in transit or something like that. Or maybe a dasha corresponding to it is running. So take Vainashika nakshatra. Like that, select the nakshatra based on the nakshatras counted from moon nakshatra. Or sometimes if you just want to activate a yoga or strengthen a particular planet, just take the nakshatra occupied by the planet. Okay, and then do that mantra. If you select a wrong nakshatra, don't think that you will get a bad effect because you are doing a Vedic mantra for a nakshatra deity. So you may not get the result that you are aspiring, but you will get a good result only. So don't worry. If you are prescribing somebody a nakshatra mantra, don't think that you may be spoiling this something. It will never happen. It will only be for good. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Typically, the nakshatras that you propitiate are based on the Janma Chakra, the natal chart, rather than the annual, monthly, daily, etc. chart. So take the natal chart when the person was born, look at the nakshatras in that chart. Okay? Any other questions? Okay. So the first mantra I will read is for the Kritika star. Interestingly, this nakshatra suktam is arranged in such a way that it starts from Kritika, goes around the zodiac and ends in Bharani. Bharani, which is ruled by Yama, it ends in Bharani. That is the way it is organized. And if you see some dashas also, the first dasha they mention of Kritika and then Adra, and then it's basically Kritika system that is used. So we will start with Kritika. Today I will do Kritika. Kritika is ruled by Agni, and because I am not doing all the stars in one day, I am doing 1 star or 2 stars every day, I expect you to remember. If I ask you next week, if I ask any of you next week, who rules Kritika, you must be able to tell me. Agni, the god of fire. Okay? So this is a mantra for Agni, the ruler, the deity ruling the nakshatra of Kritika. Om Agnirnah Patu Kritika Nakshatram Devamindriyam Idamasam Vichakshanam Haviratam Juhotana Yasya Bhanti Rasnayo Yasya Ketava Yasyema Vishva Bhuvanani Sarva Sakritika Bhiravi Samvasana Agnirno Devastu Visedadhatu. Next, let's see Rohini. Rohini is ruled by Prajapati. Do you know who is Prajapati? Not really. Not sure. Yeah, Prajapati is basically the one, he is the progenitor for all the beings basically. All the beings, all the gods, humans, all the Rakshasas, everybody basically came from him. For this particular age that we are living in, the Prajapati is Kashyapa Prajapati. So this is a mantra for Prajapati. Rohini is ruled by Prajapati. Some people actually say Rohini is ruled by Brahma also. Prajapati and Brahma are very similar. Prajapati is an Amsha of Brahma. So some people also say Brahma, but the mantra actually says that Rohini is ruled by Prajapati. This is a mantra for Prajapati. the ruler, the deity ruling the nakshatra of Rohini. Om Prajapate Rohini Vetupatni Vishwarupa Vrihati Chitrabhanu Sano Yajnasya Suvite Dadhatu Yatha Jive Macharadasya Veera Rohini Devyudagat Purastat Vishwarupani Pratimodamana Prajapatim Havisha Vardhayanti Priya Devanamupayatu Yajnam. So we will do next class we will do Mrugashira and Adra. I will check. If you have a book called Mantra Pushpam that was published by Ramakrishna Mission, Nakshatra Sottam is there along with the Swaram. Yeah.
What are the Mahakala and Kala relations?
Yeah. Mahakala Hora and Kala Hora. Oh, Kala and Mahakala, yeah. See, the thing is, for various of these things, for finding the column, Rahu column, Guru column, etc., to divide the day into 8 equal parts, day and night basically into 16 equal parts. So each Kala is basically 1.5 hours. Similarly, when you find Hora, each Hora is 1 hour. So for all these divisions, sunrise is an epoch. You take sunrise, from then onwards, 1 hour is 1 Hora, another hour is another Hora, another hour is another Hora, like that. And there is another, similarly, you start from sunrise, 1.5 hours is 1 column, 1.5 hours is 1 column, and so on. So all these divisions of time into 1 hour, 1.5 hours, etc., are based on an epoch, which is usually the sunrise. But there are some people who say, forget sunrise, we don't care about sunrise, take 6 o'clock in the morning. So they say that this time based on 6 o'clock, whatever your watch shows, 6 o'clock, that's when sunrise happens. They just take that. And especially for Horas, Pandit Sanjay Raj does that. Sometimes actually for Prashnas, he just uses the time in the clock. And sometimes he uses 6 o'clock using the local mean time. So there is a lot of confusion, controversy, and confusion and controversy. So all those, to capture all those, I just added these 2 terms. He says that the clock is basically Mahakala, the time personified. Mahakala is basically time personified. So for Hora also, if you see, there are 2 Horas that my software reports. One is the actual Hora, the other is based on Mahakala. So he says that whatever clock you are using, whatever clock is there on the wall, that is the representation of Mahakala. Whether it is the correct time, wrong time, whatever it is. He says you can use it for astrological purposes. That is his theory. So he said it is Mahakala, so I just called it Mahakala, Hora and Mahakala. So whatever Kala or Hora is reported in the software under the adjective Mahakala is basically based on the actual time. Assuming 6 o'clock as the epoch, instead of sunrise. Sun may rise at 7:30, you don't care. So that is using the Mahakala. On the other hand, there is one using Yamadharmaraja, which is very strict, very principled, very dharmic. So there you respect the sun, whereas Mahakala doesn't respect sun. So that is how Sanjay ji puts it. In my view, if you ask my view, several things may work for you, but there is only one thing that is basically right. If you ask me, sunrise is sacrosanct. There is something sacrosanct about sunrise. You can't say that my clock says it's 6:10 now. Somebody else's clock may say it's 6:05 now. If you use 6:05 and do your analysis, it doesn't make sense to me. If you are lucky, you may get it right, but that's a different matter. But as far as the science of astrology is concerned, in my view, whatever is given as Mahakala Hora here and whatever is given as Mahakala is basically meaningless as far as I am concerned. But because Sanjay ji and other people use them, I just keep them in my software. As far as I am concerned, sunrise is the epoch. Other epochs are nonsense. So I just use the Hora Lord, this Hora Lord, which is based on sunrise, and this Kala, which is based on sunrise. So that is how I do it. Every 1.5 hours, there is a change in the column. I forget the exact table, but I believe the first column is probably the Vigya Lord in the daytime, but in the night time I think it's different. There is a definition. If I open my software, if I look at the function that computes them, I can refresh my memory.
Where are we going to use them actually?
Kala? Okay. Hora we have already used. See, Kala and Mahakala are not two things, so don't think that they are two things. They are just one thing, computed in two different ways. So forget the term Mahakala. It's basically Kala, using the Mahakala Raja and Yamadharmaraja as a. So now, what is the role of Kala? So this is basically the nature of time. This is different from Hora. This is basically used to decide what kind of activities you should be doing. For example, there is a column known as Rahu column. Those 1.5 hours are ruled by Rahu. So during those times, you better do activities that Rahu shows. You see, either cheating, being cheated, suffering, either do that, or Rahu can also show upasana, spiritual and occult pursuits. So you better do one of those. So if you have a choice, you better choose the spirituality. So in Rahu Kalam they say that the best activity is to just do puja, to sit down and meditate. That's the only good activity. So there are actually people in some parts of India where they do not start anything auspicious in Rahu Kalam. Not only starting, if they are doing something, they just take Rahu Kalam off. They don't do anything during Rahu Kalam, either meditate or don't do anything. So that is the belief in some parts of India. Similarly, if you say Surya Kalam, what is a good activity to be doing in Surya Kalam? What does Surya show? Okay, light within. What else? Soul. What else? Surya shows the dharma. So it's a very good time to visit temples. Rahu Kalam is a good kalam to be just sitting and meditating. But Surya Kalam is a good kalam to go to a temple, get a puja done, etc. Similarly, Chandra Kalam is a good kalam for doing what? You may have realized one thing by now. For me? Okay, good. Chandra is mine. What else? Chandra, what are the good things shown by Chandra? Enjoyment, being happy. Read literature, be in the company of good people and just enjoy, appreciate people. So that is what? Socialize. All these are Chandra's activities. Surya's activities are dharma, religion, etc. Rahu's activities are spirituality or total non-spirituality. Of course, Ketu doesn't have a column. So similarly, there are columns. You may realize one thing now. When you say column, I'm basically talking about the characteristics of the planet, the karakatva of the planet. Based on what the planet signifies, it is good for those activities. Whereas if I say Hora, I'm not talking about planetary signification. If we say Surya Hora, the best things to be doing during that time are what Surya shows in your horoscope, not just what Surya in general signifies. So when you look at the Hora, the 1 hour division of time, you look at your own chart. If you say, for example, Surya is your 10th lord, then Surya Hora is a good time to be joining a new job, accepting a new offer, or going to your work and start your work, or engross yourself in your work. So those are the good things during Surya Hora. So like that, during Hora, the ideal things to be doing are decided based on what the Hora lord, the planet ruling that particular planetary hour, signifies in your chart, based on the houses he owns and the houses he occupies. Whereas the Kala, the 1.5 hour division of time, the ruler of that planet, whatever he in general shows, those are the good activities. So these are general, not just for you. During Surya Kalam, everybody in the world, everybody in your town, better go to a temple. It's a good time to be visiting a temple. It's a generic thing. So whereas Hora is more horoscope specific. Now let me ask, what is Guru Kalam good for? What is a good activity to be doing during Guru Kalam? Which is running right now? Yeah, teaching, discussing very sophisticated knowledge, discussing traditional knowledge, discussing Vedic knowledge, discussing Vedanta, like we are doing right now. Actually, interestingly, Jyothishya Kalam is running right now. I was just wondering, maybe Jyothishya Kalam is running. I just checked, I just clicked on new. Actually, Jyothishya Kalam started some time back. After we started the class, when we started it was Mas Kalam. But after that it changed into Brihaspati Kalam, so it is good. Probably, yeah. Probably most of our classes are happening during Brihaspati Kalam on Sunday. So that is good. We never planned it that way. But Brihaspati Kalam is good for discussing Vedic knowledge, trying to get self-knowledge, trying to get Atma-Jnana. For that, Brihaspati time is good. What is Shukra Kalam good for? The 1.5 hours ruled by Venus. Can you guess what those are good for? Yeah? Yeah? What? Perhaps, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah? Yeah? For me? Get married, but you can't get married twice every day. Shukra Kalam comes twice every day. So, that's tough. Especially these days. Maybe sometime back, when each person could marry as many people as he or she wanted. Maybe in those days it was possible, but no. For me? Yeah. Yeah. But it's good. Shukra is the planet of love. So it's good for romance, like Sri Ram said. It's good for enjoyment. You can watch movies. If you want to go to a movie, Shukra Kalam is a very good time. You will enjoy more if you go during that time. Whereas if you go during Rahu Kalam, you will say, why did that review say this movie was good? Terrible. Whereas if you go during Shukra Kalam, you have a better chance of liking that movie. You have a better chance of enjoying the movie. So Shukra Kalam is basically for enjoyment. Who did we leave? Mars. What is Mars Kalam? Yeah, if you want to fight with someone, the Kalam owned by Mars, the Angaraka Kalam, Mangala Kalam is a good Kalam. The 1.5 hours ruled by Mars. And Buddha, what is Buddha good for? Scholarship. Engage in scholarly activities. Read books. Understand books. Meditate on what you read so that you absorb it. Jupiter only gives you ideas. Mercury makes you absorb them. So during Buddha Kalam, you can try to recapitulate what you learned, try to understand it, try to digest the knowledge, and also write. It's a good time for writing. It's a very good time for communication. Yeah. It's a good column for everybody in your town to be doing that activity. Yeah, in the time. Yeah, time zone or... Not just time zone, because in the same time zone, the Suryodayam, the sunrise may be off by 40 minutes. In the same time zone, one place may have sunrise at 6 o'clock, one place may have sunrise at 6:40. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, that is nonsense. Irrespective of who does it. A person of great stature may be doing it, but it's not meaningful. So it is based on sunrise, and it is based on the place. The place whether you are living in Boston or whether you are living in Philadelphia. Both may be in the same time zone. But basically, when they are running one column, you are basically one column ahead. Most of it, anyway. So,
when you take this column, when they are generic to everybody, if we don't know the particular hora for my chart, then we put the column. But if I know the hora that's running, should that be given more preference to doing what it is rather than a column?
Yes, but the only difference between column and hora is, column is used for all activities. During this column, this is a good thing to be doing. During this column, this is a good thing to be doing. Whereas hora is typically seen when you are starting something, when you are starting a job, when you are applying for a job, when you are meeting a person, when you are starting to read a book, when you are starting to read something. Like that, it's basically used for a boss. It's used for starting some new activity. Then, the hora running at that time is very important. See, for example, when we take the annual Tithi a new year is starting. So we are taking that hora, and that will control the nature of that year. Similarly, when a new month starts, we are taking the hora, and that controls the nature of the month. When you take a day, when you take daily Tithi when the day is starting, at that time whatever hora is running, that hora lord will control during the whole day. He is the ruler of the day. In an annual chart, he is the ruler of the year. The hora lord is the ruler of the year. So hora at the beginning of something, hora at an epoch, controls the nature of that whole thing. Similarly, when you are starting a job, the hora lord at the time you are starting the job is like the lord of the job. No, it's not a Panchanga. It's above the Panchanga. But when you do Tithi Pravesha chart, the 5 Panchanga elements are like 5 ministers, and hora lord is basically the king.
But when you are choosing the moon star, choosing the 5 Panchanga elements,
maybe we did not mention it, but it's very important. You should definitely look at hora lord. See, like I am saying now, just like the Hora Lord at the beginning of a year is the ruler of the year. The Hora Lord, when you start reading a book, let's say you got a nice book, an astrology book. Let's say you got GnWxyU and you wanted to read it. The Hora Lord at the time you started to read is the ruler of that reading of the book. If you take the reading of the book as one big activity, the king during that activity is the Hora Lord. Other Panchanga elements, the Tithi, Vara, Nakshatra, Yoga, Karana, the last, they are like 5 ministers. One controlling happiness, one controlling disturbances, one controlling achievement, etc. But the king is Hora Lord still. Similarly, when you join a job, for that whole tenure in that company, he is like that Hora Lord at the time you started in that job. He is like the king during that whole time. So he is very important. So when you take a muhurta, make sure that the Hora Lord is well placed in the chart, and more importantly, make sure that the Hora Lord is a good planet in your own horoscope. Similarly, typically Sanjay ji says, if you are joining a job, select the 10th Lord Hora in your horoscope. It may or may not be possible. You can at least select somebody who is good for your career, rather than let's say let's say your 8th Lord is affecting 10th house, showing changes in career. And if you select the Hora of that planet to join a new job, you are very unlikely to stay in that job for a long time. So select a planet that is auspicious for your 10th house. Maybe if your 9th Lord, let's say, is in 10th house, it's very auspicious for the 10th house. Let's say your 10th Lord is in 5th house. Just select the 10th Lord then. Maybe another let's say Lagna Lord is in 10th house. Select the planet then. Some good planet associated with your 10th house. Similarly, when you are getting married, some good planet who is beneficially influencing your 7th house or your Vishwada. Select that planet, that Hora. Sometimes the thing is, you have so many criteria, it's not easy to do justice to all those. If you want such a Hora, the Lagna may be a terrible Lagna. So you really can't say, I want only this Hora. The good thing with Horas is, each Hora comes several times in the day. Because you have 7 Horas that are repeating and 24 days. So each Hora basically comes 3.5 times a day. So you can select one of those. So you have 3.5 possible Lagnas, maybe 3 or 4, not 3.5, but 3 or 4 possible Lagnas that you can choose from. So you can try to, one of them is hopefully a good Lagna. If not, don't be hell-bent on just the 7th Lord or 10th Lord. Take some other planet which is auspicious from the 10th house. It doesn't have to be a planet aspecting the 10th house or being in the 10th house. It may be somebody having an Agada on the 10th house. It may be somebody who is with the 10th Lord. It may be somebody who is aspecting the 10th Lord. As long as a particular planet is good for your career, based on the Rashi and Dashamsha, you can go with the planet's Hora. Okay. So, to summarize, what we learned newly now is, the Hora Lord in a Muhurta is very important. And Hora Lord, when you start a particular activity, is very important. He is like the king during that entire activity. So you should pay attention to that planet's ownership and agenda in your own natal horoscope, as well as, if possible, in the chart at that time also. And secondly, the column is not used just for the beginning of an epoch, but during the entire activity. So if you want to do some activity at a particular time, you will be more successful in that activity if it is in tune with the nature of the time at that time. So for that we use the Kala Lord. The one we left out finally is Saturn. What is Saturn column good for? Hard work, discipline.
Stability.
Perhaps stability also. Yes. And if you want to do some kind of, let's say, sadhana, some tapasya, Saturn is good for it. Some disciplined work, Saturn is good for it. Some hard work, somebody asks you to help, he's moving from one apartment to another apartment, he needs people to help him. You want to go, that's a very good time to keep going. If you go during that time, you will work hard and you will not feel bad about it. Whereas if you go during Venus column, you may work hard but you may not enjoy it. Pardon me?
Go there, you can come back.
Yeah. Go there, while people are moving, maybe you will just watch a movie and come back. Yes.
It is good to assume that all these columns lag behind the columns in India by 9.5 hours now.
Roughly, yeah. Roughly. Sunrise is not exactly 9.5 hours.
So you don't have to go by the column in India.
No, don't. Please don't. Recompute here. And... Right. Yeah. Yeah. If you want to find the column, the best thing is to look in the software. It gives the Kala lot here. So whether you use Mahakala, 6 o'clock or sunrise, it is basically Jupiter column right now. Yeah. This is based on 6 o'clock. Yeah. Panchanga give based on 6 o'clock as the epoch. But they say that if sunrise is 10 minutes away, they basically add or subtract 10 minutes. The thing is, in India, because it's close to the equator, sunrise is always very close to 6 o'clock. It varies, but maybe half hour. So it's very easy. Whereas here it varies by 1.5 hours also. So you have to be careful. And also the thing is, suddenly one day you decide, okay, daylight saving time is over. So your 6 o'clock is now a different 6 o'clock. What was 5 o'clock yesterday is your 6 o'clock today. But still, people who use the clock time, so as Sanjay ji said, the time on the clock in the wall, the time in the clock on the wall, he said. To use that time, basically you are all the whims and fancies of Mahakala, you are basically following it. And I'm not even sure if that's right, because this whimsical and fancy changing of time, it's not really Mahakala. Mahakala is very systematic. He may not be Yamadharmaraja, he may not respect sun and moon. See, Yamadharmaraja is like Sanjay ji says, he respects sun and moon because he is dharma. So, Yamadharmaraja symbolizes time which is based on sun rising, sun setting, moon coming, etc. So, that is based on sunrise, sunset, etc. But Mahakala doesn't care about sun, doesn't care about moon. He is the time personified. He is very tough to understand. He is very systematic. 1 nanosecond, 1 nanosecond, 1 nanosecond. Time just keeps moving. It doesn't wait for anybody. So, if you are talking about that time doesn't depend on sun rising or setting. But if some people in the universe say, oh, now actually it's not 6 o'clock, let's call it 5 o'clock from now onwards. And if they keep changing the time, it doesn't make sense to call it as a time that symbolizes Mahakala. So there is another alternative, which also Sanjay ji uses sometimes. That is based on 6 o'clock local mean time. Instead of saying 6 o'clock in the clock that is on the wall, I will just use it. You use 6 o'clock local mean time. So there is something called local mean time. So that doesn't change whether you change the time zone to Eastern Daylight Saving Time or Eastern Standard Time. The local mean time is the same. Right. So the only variability there is at some point of time you decided at the epoch. Okay, now today is 6 o'clock. You decide one starting point, and then onwards it just keeps going at a particular uniform pace. It doesn't change. It doesn't wait for anybody. So that if you call as Mahakala, it makes sense to me. That is really Mahakala. So actually, at least for the Hora, in the software you can do, there are some settings which I believe. Alt PCW. If you go to related to calculations, and if you go weekday, some W, Alt PCW. Yeah, Hora and weekday start options. If you go there are two definitions here. The Hora, in brackets I say Satya, the true Hora. For that, you can either define it to be starting at sunrise. Sunrise is the epoch, or you can say 6 a.m. LMT is the epoch. You can select one of the two. And for Mahakala, you can say the epoch is either 6 a.m. LMT or 6 a.m. whatever standard time you are using. So you can select one of these for Mahakala. And right now in the software, the defaults are, the normal Horas are based on sunrise, and the Mahakala Horas are based on local mean time rather than the actual time in the clock. So this is what the software is doing right now. And Sanjay ji, when he does prashnas, he has this technique in which he divides the Hora into 12 equal parts. Basically every 5 minutes he takes and gives one sign for that. That is actually given here. If you see next to Hora in the software, it should be given. Yeah, there is a 5-minute sign, right? 5-minute sign. So what he does is, each Hora starts at a particular time and goes on for 60 minutes. You divide that into 12 equal parts, you get 5-minute signs. So these are the signs given by the software, and those signs he uses for doing prashna. He looks at the influences on the sign and then he gives his analysis on the prashna. And the way those are computed is, you take the hora lord, you take the sign ruled by him and go 12 signs from there. Suppose we are running Jupiter Dasha. Take the sign ruled by Jupiter, Sagittarius or Pisces. So the first 5 minutes will be that sign. Next 5 minutes will be next sign. Next 5 minutes will be next sign. You go cyclically, finish the zodiac, the hora is done. You move to the next hora, take the sign ruled by that planet. Now, each planet rules 2 signs. So which sign to take?
First one, the first time, the second time, the hora comes back.
During the daytime, day sign. During the night time, the night sign. If Jupiter hora comes, let's say if Mars hora comes in the night time, which is the night sign ruled by Mars? Night sign, right? Aries. Because this is Cancer. Cancer is moon, Leo is sun, right? So Cancer is the night, Leo is day. So this is day and this is night. Yeah, Aries, Taurus, Cancer, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. These are night signs. And then these 4 are day signs. And again these are night signs and these are day signs. Yeah, here there is a reversal. Normally you would think these 6 to be moon and these 6 to be sun. But actually these 4 and these 2 are, actually sorry to those who are listening, these two. Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, then Sagittarius and Capricorn. These are the night signs. These are the night strong signs. And Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, and then Aquarius and Pisces. These are the day strong signs. It's in my book, it's in Parasara, it's in DTHS.
When I thought moon owned the things,
Yeah.
the bottom of the sun, when they gave it away to the sun.
Yeah.
But even then, it changed.
Yes, there is a change. I'm not fully sure why. There is some explanation I was given, but I'm not convinced at all. It's so vague that I don't even want to repeat it. But there must be some philosophical principle.
One more thing, if all this time based on LMP, then we should be looking at LMP, not alpha.
For me?
If all your Kala and Mahakala is based on
But I said, using that setting, you can change it to use the actual time.
but Mahakala by default is LMP.
There are different views. Some people
If you're using LMP as
Yeah.
part of Mahakala,
Yeah.
then you can't use your clock.
Yeah, you can't use your clock. Using your clock basically makes it easy when you don't have any software or any, if you don't want to compute, you just want to roughly,
So what I'm saying is, if you look at Mahakala and you want to do something, what time is setting a muhurtam,
yeah.
you can't use the original what
If you are setting a muhurtam, I advise you don't use Mahakala Hora at all. Only for some prashna, Sanjay ji uses it. For Tithi for finding the ruler of the year. For that he also uses Satya. The Hora based on sunrise. He uses that. Because you are talking about the ruler of the year. So there you cannot deviate from Satya and say I will use Mahakala.
in that Satya, which is sunrise,
Yeah.
use sunrise time, that is based on local time or is it
Doesn't
based on
matter.
local time?
Doesn't matter.
Let's say
Let's say, one second, let me put it this way. Let's say the time is, let's say we are using a particular time zone in which the time right now is 7:30. And let's say 6:30 sun rose. So it's basically 1 hour since sunrise. And wait, listen to me. Let's say time zone was a different time zone. The time zone was 1 hour away. So the time right now is not 7:30, let's say, it's 6:30 actually. But sunrise would also have been offset by the same time. So if I count the time from sunrise, you don't care about the clock, the time, etc. We are not talking about absolute time. We are talking about the delta from the sunrise, and then dividing it into hour, 5 minutes, etc. So it doesn't matter.
what is it? Let's say sunrise is 6:24.
Yeah,
So 6:24 is the next 1 hour. That's 1 hour.
absolutely.
No, let's say I'm saying you do it in this hour. I would tell somebody to do that. You said it this spot.
Oh, okay. So if you tell somebody which time, if you tell somebody do at this time, yes, whether you are using local mean time or standard time to define the time is important. So you better, when you use the software, better use just standard time that everybody uses. But the calculations internally are based on the local mean time or whatever time. You don't care about it. It's under the hood for you.
You still you understand. What you're saying is, if I pick this sunrise as the F4 for the start of the Hora,
Yeah?
the time shows up where I can change it local time. That's translated into local time, not
Right.
local mean
See,
time.
yes. Let's say I select South Grafton. The time zone I selected is 5 hours, right? So I say what is the hora at 11 o'clock. The software will tell me, it will find when the sunrise happened in local standard time. Using the same time zone, it finds the sunrise. And then it finds the delta. It tells you what hora is running. All in local standard time. Otherwise, if you say, I want to use local mean time, so click this button. Don't use 5 o'clock. Then it will say, you are saying 11 o'clock local mean time. That is a different time in local standard time. You have to do the math in your mind to find out exactly what time it is. Then the software will tell you again what hora it is. See, it's actually Saturn hora. It's a different hora. If you were using local mean time, 11 o'clock, it would be a different hora. So, if you were doing that, then you have to tell the person, make sure that it's 7 o'clock local mean time. But if you don't enter this, if you just enter 5 o'clock time zone, oops. The software uses the time zone that you select, whether it's local mean time or 5 o'clock, or you may even change. For some weird reason, you may say, I don't want to use 5 hours, 7 hours time zone. You may change the time zone. Then software does all the calculations in the time zone. The sunrise time reported also changes. Actually, let me illustrate that. That will be a good illustration. So now we selected 5 o'clock, right? The sunrise is at 7:10:48, right? Let's say I select 11 o'clock, but local mean time. The sunrise will be at 7:24 because the local mean time is 14 minutes away. If you see, because you click that button, it automatically changes time zone to 4:46. So it's 14 minutes earlier. So because of that, sunrise will happen at 7:24 now. But the 7:24 local mean time is the same point in time as 7:10 local standard time. Okay? Now let's go back to our normal time. But my advice is, never click that local mean time button because it leads to confusion. If you don't understand what local mean time is, you are totally host, and the person that you are advising is totally host. So never click the local mean time. The only time you should be clicking that is, if you are looking at an old chart given in an old book like Dr. Raman's book, they say this person was born at 5:14 a.m. local mean time. They report all the times in local mean time. If they do that, then select the local mean time and then again, for all the future calculations, you may want to convert back the time to the standard time. That's the easiest. So whenever you are using local mean time, be careful. Okay, any other questions?
There is one other belief that, I don't know, if you start any activity at 12 noon, you don't have to worry about all the Kala.
Yeah, we discussed this a couple of times in the past actually. That is the Agni Muhurta. The belief is, if you start any activity at 12 o'clock at noon time, it's considered a very auspicious time to start anything. They say that if you select that Muhurta, that time to start things will happen very nicely for you. You don't have to worry about all other negatives in the Muhurta. The thing about that is, that's again a corruption of Kali Yuga. All the knowledge of the sages. If you are a Rishi, everything will be obvious in your brain. If you are not a Rishi, you go by something that somebody tells you. See, all the knowledge is within us. If you are able to feel all the knowledge within you, you are safe. If you expect other people to keep telling you so that you know things, you are in trouble. You may or may not be arriving at the right conclusion. And that is what happened to this. And in Kali Yuga, there are so few people who realize things by themselves. They basically rely on what other people tell them. And if one person makes a mistake, everybody will follow it. The 12 o'clock is not exactly what is special about 12 o'clock. Again, like I said, if you change the clock by 1 hour, say, oh, from today onwards, it's daylight saving time. What was earlier 12 o'clock would become 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock. And now they are actually talking about changing the daylight saving time. They are thinking of lengthening it in US, elongating it by another month or so, almost a few weeks, 3 weeks or so. So if they do it, suddenly what used to be 12 o'clock would be 11 o'clock on another date now. It's all nonsense to take that 12 o'clock and assume that this is an auspicious time just because your clock says 1200. It means nothing. The real thing behind that is, when sun is exactly in the 10th house cusp, that is auspicious. If Lagna is at 10 degree Leo and sun is at 10 degree Taurus, very auspicious. If Lagna is at Cancer 12 degrees 13 minutes and sun is at 12 degrees 13 minutes in Aries, wherever Lagna is, if sun is in the 10th house, At the same degree, same minute, same second. That is an auspicious second.
That doesn't happen at
It doesn't happen at 12 o'clock, but it happens close to 12 o'clock.
Yeah, sometimes it's like measured, it's like 130.
Yeah. It's not, the 12 o'clock is an approximation.
In India, it's not more close.
It's lot more close, but even in India, it's not perfect. If you live on equator, then
Sun is on the top, right? The maximum power. So
exactly, sun is perfect, very good. That is the point. When sun is exactly on the cusp of the 10th degree, sun is basically on the top. Sun is most powerful. And also, if you look in terms of horoscope, astrology, 10th house is the house of karma. Sun is the karaka for karma. He is the blesser. When the blessed sun is in your house of karma, he will take care of your karma. Period. So that is the logic behind it. But like everything, there are always caveats. The caveats are not mentioned by those who tell you all these shortcuts. For everything there is a caveat. So you are better off looking at other things also. Just because sun is in the 10th house, if Lagna Lord is in the 8th house, 8th Lord is in Lagna, it may not work for you. So don't blindly go by it, but if possible, select that. That will be, if other things are not totally beaten down, select it. If you have to compromise everything else in order to take this, in my view, it's not worth it. But if other things are reasonably okay, then go by this. But again, go by the degree, minute and second occupied by sun. Ideally, if the degree, minute and second occupied by sun is exact as Lagna, that is the perfect muhurta. But that lasts only for a few seconds. So at least match the degrees and minutes. If not, at least match the degree. Make sure that sun is in the same degree. Okay? So now, if you really do something at the second in which Lagna and sun are at the same degree, minute and second, but 90 degrees apart, then maybe other doshas will not touch you. But if you are only accurate up to degree and minutes, maybe some doshas will touch you. If you are accurate only up to degree, maybe some more doshas will touch you. So when the classics tell you, if you do in Avdhin-murta, no doshas will touch you, it's only relative. You have to really understand that it's not a perfect statement. Even if you are off by half hour, don't assume that you will not be touched by all the doshas. Any other questions?
I think the shape is different out of clean and only that.
Okay.
Two other things which you are not concerned of, but Yamaganda is Manamam and the Gulga. What is that really representative of? His question.
Yeah, I had to refresh my memory and I will answer it in the next class. Again, if I open my software and look at the source code, then only I will remember. So again, these are based on the same 1.5 hour division, but certain kalas are, one particular kala is given to Yamakantaka, that is called Yamagandam, Yamakalam. Some people call it Yamakalam, some people call it Yamagandam. And similarly, some certain time is given to Gurika. So I have to refresh my memory on how to calculate those. But typically, stay away from those times. That's the bottom line. Gurika Kalam and Yamagandam, stay away from those times. They are not very auspicious.
Why not Mandi Kalam?
Pardon?
Why not Mandi Kalam? Why they avoid it? Why they use it?
I know. I'm not sure. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, let's start. Okay, I want to start a new dasha. We have talked about Vimshyotri dasha so far. I want to talk about a variation of Vimshyotri dasha. It's a dasha that we don't know much about. It's a dasha that is mentioned in tradition. It's a dasha that we know how to compute. It's a dasha on which we have some hints on how to use it. But it's a dasha that's not fully well understood, at least as far as I understand. But I want to teach it to you so that one of you may explore it further and make more progress on it. So I want to teach you. And it's basically Vimshyotri dasha. So I will not spend a lot of time on computation, but I will briefly tell you how to compute it and then we will start looking at some examples. See, in Vimshyotri dasha, what we are doing is, let's say somebody is born in Ashwini Nakshatra. Ashwini is ruled by Ketu. So we say that the first 7 years of his life is Ketu dasha. And the next 20 years are Venus dasha and so on. Does everybody remember that table? Let me do one thing. Just give me a second. It will be useful to have that. Actually, You just write it down. So at least if you don't remember the rulerships of other nakshatras than other dashas, at least Vinchotri is such a simple dasha, such a basic dasha that you should remember. Which planet owns which nakshatra, how many years, what is the order, etc. you should remember. Okay. I didn't give the nakshatra rulership. So, pardon me? Okay, that's fine, that's fine. So if you start from Kritika, oh, it's in the first. Okay, I wanted dasha length also. That's okay. Here are nakshatras. Okay. So here we have the, see, these are the nakshatra rulerships. Of course, ruling deity is also here. Somebody was asking, ruling deity is here and nakshatra, Vinchotri Lord is here. So Ashwini is ruled by Ketu, right? But is Ashwini the only nakshatra ruled by Ketu? No. There is Magha that is ruled by Ketu, Magha or Magha. And then there is Mula that is ruled by Ketu. Similarly, Bharani is ruled by Venus and here Purvafalguni is ruled by Venus. So you have 27 stars and 9 planets. So all the 9 planets will rule 9 nakshatras, and then again the next 9 nakshatras are ruled by the same 9 planets, and finally the final 9 nakshatras are also ruled by the same 9 planets. So you have these rulerships repeat. So each planet rules 3 stars. They are in a trine. They are exactly 120 degrees apart in the zodiac, right? So Ashwini, Magha and Mula are 120 degrees apart each. Then Bharani, Purvafalguni, Purvashada are 120 degrees apart. So it's like a trine that is rotating around the zodiac. So the first 7 years are Ketu Dasha, next 20 years are Venus Dasha, next 6 years are Sun Dasha, 10 years are Moon Dasha, 7 years are Mars period, 18 years are Rahu period, 16 years are Jupiter period, 19 years are Saturn period, finally 17 years are Mercury period. Then 120 years are over. That is the Paramayish, the longevity of a human being in Kali Yuga. So 120 years are done, and then you go to the next cycle. The next sorry, what am I saying? No next cycle. That's done. So basically you will see that if you treat the first dasha, suppose somebody is born in Ashwini Nakshatra, we say that the first dasha is that of Ketu. Does it correspond to Ashwini or all the 3 stars ruled by Ketu? If you say it corresponds only to Ashwini, by the time his 120 years are done, it's Ashwesha dasha. You are saying that only 120 degrees of the zodiac, from Ashwini to Ashwesha gives dasha. Other nakshatras don't give dasha. Does it make sense? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So what people say is, the first Ketu dasha is not just Ashwini dasha, but it is also Ashwini, Magha and Mula dasha. Are you with me so far? So in this normal Vinchotri dasha, each planet gets his dasha once, so that dasha has to be shared between 3 nakshatras. Now, there is an alternative. There is a dasha known as Tribhagi Vinchotri dasha. Tribhagi. What does it mean literally? 3-parted. 3 means 3, 3 means 3, Bhaga means part, Bhagi means parted, having parts. Tribhagi means having 3 parts. So it's a Vinchotri dasha that is having 3 parts. Can you guess what it would be? Will there be 9 dashas or 27 dashas there? Can you guess? 27 dashas. And the first dasha will be, let's say Moon is in Ashwini at birth. First dasha will be Ashwini, Ketu, then Bharani, Venus, then Kritika, Sun, and so on. When you are done with Ashwesha or Mercury dasha, the next dasha will be another Ketu dasha but corresponding to Magha. And the next dasha will be again Venus dasha repeating for the second time, but this will be Venus dasha corresponding to Purvafalguni. The previous Venus dasha was corresponding to Bharani, but this Venus dasha will be corresponding to Purvafalguni. Again Sun dasha will come for the second time in life, and this will corresponding to Uttarafalguni. This will correspond to Uttarafalguni rather than Kritika. And finally, when you are done with Jyeshtha, which is Mercury dasha, Again Ketu will come for the third time in life. But this Ketu is not the same Ketu as earlier. This is Mula Ketu. So these are the, here there are 27 dashas. So you have 9 dashas of 9 planets coming again, coming one more time. So that way you get 27 dashas. And here the 27 dashas will correspond to the 27 nakshatras. Are you with me so far? But now the problem is, it will be 360 years. What should we do? Okay, compress to 120? Yeah, compress to 40. So each cycle, each 9 dashas, instead of being 120, if you take from Ashwini to Aslesha, normally they would have been 120 years. But here they will be only 40 years. So each dasha will be 1/3 of what it could otherwise have been. So Ketu dasha will be 7 divided by 3. What is that? 2 1/3. 2 years and 4 months. And Venus dasha will be 20 divided by 3, which is 6 years and 8 months, and so on. So like this you divide each dasha into 3 parts. It will come in 3 stages. First of Ashwini, then of Mula, Magha, then of Mula, and so on. So simple. This is how you find this variation of instructions. Pardon me?
Why it is done like that? Instead of 7 years, like you divide that into
Okay, you are saying why not be done with Ketu dasha? So first Ashwini, then Magha, then Mula, and then Bharani. Then you will be jumping all over in the zodiac. Instead of jumping, this goes through the nakshatra chakra in order.
we are overlapping.
Yes.
Then you come here, you're saying the Vibhagi, it's not Ketu dasha here, so there's 3
You are saying if you divide Ketu dasha into 3 parts, one is Ashwini, ruled by Ashwini, one is ruled by. So you will get the dasha calculations will be the same as normal Vinchatri. But here, then if you did that, you would have been jumping all over the zodiac. But here you are going cyclically across the zodiac. So this is a zodiac based dasha. Pardon me? Right, that's why I am not saying anything negative about it. That may also be valid. I don't know much about that. But this dasha I know about. This is what is talked about in tradition. So let's talk about it. Maybe that is also meaningful. But this, pardon me? As far as I know, this is not in any classic. But this is in tradition. And it's not just in our tradition. It's not like only SJC people know. For example, Tipravesh, it's only in our tradition. There are very few people outside who do it. Actually, I found somebody else who does it. Apparently, it's not. Tipravesha technique is used in some other traditions also, but it's not so popular. But this dasha is known in several traditions. In several parts of India, people actually use this tradition. So here, now, we know how to compute it, but it's laborious to do it manually because you have all these fractional years. And then when you find Antardashas, you have to again divide them into fractions. It's a mess. So instead of doing that, you can just use the software. So let us see how to do that in software. Let me take my chart as an example. The standard example chart. The time, the birth data is April 4, 1970, 5:47:13 p.m. Indian Standard Time, 5 hours 30 minutes east of GMT. Machilipatnam, India, 81 degrees 12 minutes east, 16 degrees 15 minutes north. Now go to Dasha tab, open Vinchatri Dasha. Suppose you had some other Dasha. Change it to, go to Nakshatra Dasha. Suppose you were in some other tab. Click the Nakshatra Dasha bottom tab. Click on Vinchatri Dasha. Now you have the Vinchatri Dasha here. Now click use Tribhagi variation. This is a toggle thing. If you click again, this check mark will go away and it will be normal Vinchatri. So it's a, if you see the check mark, it means you are using it. Actually, you don't have to look for it. It will look short or long. You can tell from that. So when you click that, it will become long. If it is long, it is Tribhagi. If it is short, it is normal Vinchatri. Okay? So now let's see how to use this long dasha. How to use this Tribhagi Vinchatri. Pardon me?
When do we want to use that?
It is just another variation of Vinchatri. I wouldn't say when you want to use it. This is basically like Vinchatri, but this is, according to Sanjay ji, this is more gross. This is more physical. This is things that are very material and physical that the mind is associating with. So for those he sees this. So you can use this in addition to normal Vinchatri just for confirming things. And
It's still based on moon only.
it is still based on moon, but it is based on moon and nakshatra. It is based on the whole zodiac. Moon basically progress through the entire zodiac. So here it is touching various points in the zodiac. So I will talk more about it, but the first technique that you can use is just look at the Rashi Chakra, Navamsa chart, and see how various planets are energized. And Sanjay ji here does not use other divisional charts. He uses only Rashi and Navamsa for Tribhagi Vishwatri Dasha. When you use this Dasha, it's a very physical, very mundane kind of Dasha. So for this, he just uses Rashi and Navamsa and then sees how various planets are placed in the Rashi chart. Suppose a planet is in the 7th house or owns the 7th house. Marriage is quite possible in that Dasha. Suppose a planet is in the 2nd house, maybe lot of money. Suppose a planet is in 5th house, maybe lot of power during that Dasha, and so on. So primarily use Rashi chart, secondarily use Navamsa chart, and forget about other divisional charts, and just judge. That is one technique. The other technique is see which nakshatra it is, and within that nakshatra, during that Dasha, you can divide that nakshatra based on uniform motion. Let's say, in other words, what I mean is, let's say we are talking about Sun Dasha. Sun Dasha is Kritika, right? Sun Dasha runs during Kritika. Sun Dasha, this is Sun Dasha corresponding to Kritika. The software gives you the Dasha log and also the nakshatra corresponding to it in brackets. So if you take 1993 March 3 till 1995 March 3, this is Sun Dasha. So during Sun Dasha, it is Kritika nakshatra. What is the zodiac? What is the part of the zodiac where Kritika is placed? From the 26 degrees 40 minutes in Aries till 10 degrees 0 minutes Taurus. So those 13 degrees of the zodiac are this particular nakshatra. So what you can do is forget the antardashas. You can use these antardashas, but forget about them. Even if you don't use antardashas, just from the dasha, you can divide this period. How much is this? Roughly 2 years, right? Not roughly, exactly 2 years. So divide the 2 years among these 13 degrees 20 minutes. So you can get uniformly. To do that, you can get on any given day, you can get a particular point in the zodiac. So at that time, moon is basically in that particular point in the zodiac. Do you understand what I am saying? At birth, moon was in Purabhadra. When I was born, moon was in Purabhadra. Where was he? He was at 28 degrees 33 minutes in Aquarius. That is where moon was. So as time progressed, moon started progressing. He was towards the end of Purabhadra, right? So on March 272, he finished Purabhadra. He entered Uttarabhadra. Not physically. He did not enter physically Uttarabhadra, but the progressed moon as per this dasha. Remember one thing, each dasha is nothing but a way of progressing. A way of either progressing Lagna or sun or moon or something or the other, you are progressing it. 7th house or 9th house, you are progressing something. That is what dasha is. So moon, the progressed moon as per Tribhagi Vishwatri Dasha scheme, finished Purabhadra and entered Uttarabhadra, which means he is at 3 degrees 20 minutes in Pisces on this date, March 2, 1972. From then onwards, until 78 July, for the next 6 years, 4 months, he will be going through the next 13 degrees 20 minutes, which is the length of the Uttarabhadra nakshatra. So he will go at a uniform rate in that nakshatra, so that on 4th July 1978, he will be at the end of Uttarabhadra, which means he will be at 16 degrees 40 minutes Pisces. So on any given date, you can find the longitude of moon, the progress longitude of moon, and then that will activate various points in the chart, various sahmas, Vivah Sahama, Yashas Sahama, all those will be activated. And also planets themselves. Let's say Lagna is here, Ghatika Lagna is here, Sri Lagna is here, Pranapada Lagna is here, Mercury is here. So various Lagnas, various points, mathematical points in the zodiac, various planets in the zodiac will be activated. When moon comes in contact with them, the mind is focused on those. Does it make some sense?
When you think of it's a progress moon, but it is The physical moon is referred to still the physical moon at the time, right?
No. If you take on this day, 72 March 2, moon may be at some other longitude. The actual moon on that day may be somewhere else. This is not transit. We are not talking about transit moon on a given day. Just projection. Based on where moon is at birth time, we are projecting. After 10 years, he is at this longitude. See, in this projection, moon takes 120 years to cover the entire zodiac and come back to where he was. So definitely he is not physical man, right? Moon doesn't take 120 years to go around the zodiac. Yes. During some time he is going slowly in the zodiac. During some time he is going fast. So this progression is not uniform. This is a peculiar progression. Just like Vinchotri Dasha, just like Kalachakra Dasha, just like Ashtotri Dasha. All Dashas are ways of progressing either moon or lagna or 7th house or 9th house or something. You are taking some, or Sri Lagna. You take Sudasha. It is Sri Lagna's progression. We haven't talked about it, so we'll talk about it later. So each Dasha is nothing but progressing some entity in the chart in such a way that during some time it's progressing fast, during some time it's progressing slowly, and the way it's progressing, some are zodiacal progression. Some are you go here, try, and then jump. Like that there is some weird way in which you jump. So the way you cover the zodiac is different. The speed at which you cover various parts of the zodiac is different in each dasha. So there are various dashas in which various rules are there. And why a particular rule? Why it shows a particular kind of event? We don't fully understand. Our knowledge is at the tip of the iceberg. Our knowledge is very superficial. If you are a rishi, you will not only, if I tell you this is how you find Sudhagi Vinchotri, he will understand why Kedasha is 7 years, why Vinasasha is 20 years, why this particular order. He will understand everything in a moment. But unfortunately we are not at that level. So we will just take these as rules and then go from there. But there must be some higher philosophical meaning behind all these things. Pardon me? There must be an answer. The world did not happen by random. The world happened by great intelligent design. I am using a controversial term. But
if the influence of the ecliptical with the equatorial plane,
yeah.
and if the two of them converge, then the reality of whatever significator you have comes forth. So the lunar plane is more equatorial, and then the equinoctial plane, the two of them meet.
Equinoctial plane, yeah.
And when the two planes meet, they converge, and with the significator of that plane, then you get the reality.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
yeah, there must be some such analytical aspect to it, analytical mathematical aspect. There must also be some philosophical aspect to it, and everything must be blending together beautifully. So keep doing whatever work you are doing, but analytical aspect is just one aspect of it. There must be philosophical aspects of it, spiritual and philosophical aspects. There must be several aspects actually to all these things. Anyway, coming back to this dasha, the way you use this dasha is, first of all, if it is sun dasha corresponding to Kritika, see it as sun dasha. See where sun is, what is his agenda. We can do that. But in addition, see which point in the zodiac this corresponds to, and what are the influences on that point in zodiac. Which sahamas, which points, which special lagnas, which special points, which midpoints, which planets, etc. come in contact with that particular point. All those results are possible during that time. Okay? For example, one important thing is, whenever this particular thing is transitioning from one house to another house, they may trigger important changes in life. If let's say, if progress moon was in 8th house, it can show a lot of turbulence. If progress moon, let's say, comes to 9th house, it shows protection, happiness, dharma, etc. So all the house boundaries are very important. You understand what I am saying? Now let us take an example. Now take Sun Dasha. What are the possible results in Sun Dasha? It started in 93 March and went on till 95 March. What are the possible results? Why is marriage possible? Sun is in the 7th house from Lagna. Period. And of course in Navamsa also is in the 9th house of Dharma. He owns Upada. But those are all secondary. He is in 7th house. So Sun is quite positive. What else?
No, but I think this is the point. You said You're taking sun in Kritika, right?
No, I'm not taking sun in Kritika. The first aspect is just take sun.
Okay.
It is sun dasha. He is in 7th house, so he can give marriage. Now second point is sun is in Kritika.
1 0.
Kritika 1-0. So when sun is in Kritika, what does he come in contact with?
He's coming in contact with first 3 degrees 22nd, he is in 8th house.
Yeah,
He comes in contact with 8th house.
8th house aspect. So what you do is you all the 8th house planets, but he is close to some planets, so you have to identify which one. So see one thing, is Kritika changing from one house to another house? In the middle of Kritika, is there a house change? There is a change in the house. So there will be a big change in life from the 8th house to 9th house. Some lot of hard work, lot of effort, etc. Lot of turbulence, effort, hard work, etc. 9th house, dharma, doing your job in the society, etc. So there is a transformation in life. When does it happen? When Kritika first pada is over and second pada comes. Because the first pada of Kritika is in Aries, it's the last pada in Kritika. The second pada of Kritika is in Taurus, right? If you look at how nakshatras are distributed in the Rasi. Kritika first degree, Ashwini whole nakshatra, Bharani whole nakshatra, Kritika first nakshatra are in Aries. Kritika second nakshatra, Kritika second pada, third pada, fourth pada, Rohini entire nakshatra, Mrugashira first and second pada are in Taurus, and so on. By the way, this is another thing that I expect you to remember. Which nakshatra padas are in which Rasi? You should all remember it always. If I ask you, where does Gemini start? Anybody knows? Which is the first pada in Gemini? What are the padas in Gemini? Third pada of Mrugashira, fourth pada of Mrugashira, what else? Ardra. Then what else? Punarvasu, which padas? First 3. 1, 2, 3. You can do the math, but without doing the math, I want you to just remember. Mrugashira, third, fourth, Ardra, Punarvasu, first, second, third. Those are Gemini. You should remember like that. It's not a lot of things to remember. Very few things. So try to remember. If you keep exercising your brain, if you keep thinking every day, you will remember these things. It's very useful to remember those things. Anyway, coming back here, Kritika first pada is in Aries, but from second pada onwards, there is a big change. So roughly what would that mean? This is a 2-year dasha. So if you divide it into 4 parts for the 4 padas, after the first 6 months, which is 93 September. From roughly 93 September onwards, the 8th house results are over. The wandering, the nomadic age is over, and the 9th house, the dharmic age is starting. Pardon me? Yeah. Oh, you are saying why not from moon? You can. But when you are using a moon-based dasha, Lagna is more important. Otherwise, always first house, then second house, then third house, there is a particular order. So it is less important. So if you take from Lagna, it is basically changing from 8th house to 9th house. So you can say that around September 1993, there is some big change. Of course, I got married in August. So until then, I was just like Sri Ram said, I was a nomadic. I went to one city for my BTech, another city for my master's. I was just going here and there, no stability, very unstable life. But after that also I moved, but there was more stability in life. So that is what 9th house can give. See, the thing is, using this dasha, you may not be able to make perfect prediction, but sometimes you can find out very important transitions in life. Suppose you find that a planet moves from the 7th house to 8th house, just recently. You can say that whenever that movement happened, not planet, I mean, when progress moon transition from the 7th house to 8th house, you can say a lot of change in the lifestyle may have happened during that time. The person may be under a lot of pressure from that point onwards. So you can roughly identify important changes in life, the time period in which important changes occur in life. So for that, some real on-the-ground changes in lifestyle. You can identify those things using this dasha. So it's a very useful dasha from that point of view. And here, because there was a transition from the 8th house to 9th house, my dharmic life started. I got married, my dharma basically started during that time. And also it happens to be Sun Dasha, and Sun happens to be in the 7th house. So there is a pretty decent chance of getting married. How are things now? What Dasha am I running now? What Dasha? From 2000 onwards, I am running Ardra Dasha. So what does Ardra's Dasha show?
Ardra is Gemini.
Yeah, Ardra is in Gemini.
Rahu is in your 6th house, working hard, overcome.
Yeah. First of all, this is Rahu Dasha. What does Rahu Dasha show? Rahu is in 6th house. In one house. If Rahu is in one house in 6th house, what would he show? Yeah, lot of initiative, material success. He will give you material happiness, he will give you money, etc., all the comfort. At the same time, pardon? Hasya Yoga, but I wouldn't call the Hasya Yoga given by Rahu to be Hasya Yoga. It's a very weak Hasya Yoga.
But he won't be bad when he's in home.
He is not that bad, but see, Hasya Yoga is the yoga that makes one cheerful. You take the saddest, cruelest person on earth and tell him, you know what, we have to make this person laugh. Let's come and do it. What will he do? At least he won't trouble him. He will try his best to make him laugh. But he won't really succeed. So when you are talking about a yoga called Hasya Yoga, planets like Saturn, Rahu, don't take the Hasya Yoga given by them to be Hasya Yoga. It's a very weak Hasya Yoga. Yeah, moon is there. That's the best thing. Moon is there. Yeah, he is being eclipsed. But we will come to that later. But the point is, this Rahu does not give Hasya Yoga. So ignore that. This is not really Hasya Yoga.
Yoga was not effective Hasya Yoga.
It is basically a weak Hasya Yoga. There may be some glimpses of Hasya Yoga, but I am not typically, if people see me, they don't look at me as a Hasya Yoga person. They may look at me more as a Sala Yoga person, because Mars is very strong. The 8th Lord in the 8th house, Mars is very strong. So I am more of a Sala Yoga person, straightforward person, than a cheerful, happy person. But there will be some cheerfulness also, but it's very subdued. In general, it is subdued. This yoga is a in general yoga. Yeah. Rahu is in Yetan. He is in the 6th house in Yetan. So focus is on, mind's focus is on career and overcoming the obstacles. And there will be lot of obstacles to overcome during this time. Because 6th house shows obstacles. And Rahu is in the 6th house. When a malefic is in the 6th house, things don't happen easily. There are a lot of problems, but all the problems are easily overcome. Lot of energy so that I can overcome those enemies, overcome those rivals. Lot of people will hate me in general because I have such a 6th house. Lot of people will hate me. There will be lot of people who like me also. But it is my karma from the past life. Lot of people will hate me. They feel restless when they see me. Lot of people. That is because such a strong 6th house having Rahu in it, and also Atmakarka is there. Atmakarka, if he is in the 6th house, there will be lot of enemies. Moon is my Atmakarka. So a lot of people will hate me for reason or no reason. For no apparent reason as far as this life is concerned. But if you go back to various lives, for everything there is a clear reason. Nothing happens for no reason. So, but the thing is, during Rahu's period, all those rivals, enemies, etc., will be basically put down. If I really want to fight and win over a particular enemy, I will do it. That is what Rahu will give. And also my mind will be focused on those things. So will there be lot of peace and happiness for the mind? Not really. When mind is under Rahu's influence, it is very unlikely that somebody will be very peaceful. And even if there is some peace, still at the back there is some lingering energy. Ardra is ruled by, do you know who is the ruler of the Ardra? The deity, Rudra. Ardra is belonging to Rudra. The being of Ardra is that which belongs to Rudra. So Ardra Nakshatra is ruled by Rudra. Rudra is the form of Shiva who symbolizes the fire in the whole world. Rudra is a form of Shiva who symbolizes the entire fire in the world. He is a god of fire. He is a supreme god of fire. There is a semi-god of fire, which is Agni. But Rudra is the supreme god of fire. So there is a lot of fire. The mind is in such a nakshatra, which is the embodiment of fire. So during this dasha, mind will be full of fire. So this is good for a lot of sadhanas that involve a lot of fire, etc. There is a lot of life force, a lot of vitality in the mind during this time. But this is not a good period for being relaxed, being happy, etc. So you can, though I did not mention it in the points earlier, you must have seen now that you can say some things based on the characteristics of the nakshatra also. If it is Adra nakshatra, there will be lot of energy, lot of fire in the mind. If it is Punarvasu, the next dasha is that of Punarvasu from next year. What does Punarvasu show? Who owns it? It's a very auspicious nakshatra. Who owns it? Brihaspati is the ruler as per Vimshottari, but Devata. Who is the Devata? Iti, Aditi. She is the mother of all gods. She is the most auspicious one. She is one of the wives of Kashyapa Prajapati, and through her, Kashyapa Prajapati begot lot of children. They were all gods. So she is the one who gives birth to all the gods. What are gods? Gods are nothing but various good qualities within you. So Aditi is what gives birth within excellent qualities. What gives birth within you to various excellent supreme qualities. So that is Aditi. So when your mind is in contact with Aditi, your mind is under the influence of Aditi, it's very auspicious. So it's auspicious for a lot of religious work, lot of godly work. Many good deeds, godly deeds. Usually if you see somebody who's running Punarvasu dasha, as per Vibhagi Vimshottari dasha, irrespective of other things, how Jupiter is in their chart, they will be doing lot of good karma, lot of godly karma. Okay?
So when you suggest now, so other so you have to ask person to consider.
Absolutely. If somebody, if I, for example, come and tell you, I'm feeling very restless. There are so many people who are teaching all wrong things. I'm so pissed off that they are teaching this paddhati, and smashing divisional charts. Let's say there is somebody on a list that says divisional charts are all nonsense. You guys are doing wrong. It's only Rashi chart, don't use divisional charts like that. There will be, suppose somebody is advancing what may seem to me like wrong knowledge. Ardra, because I am under Radra's influence, it may give me a lot of fire. Unless I meditate and I control the Rudra, I propitiate, I will not have peace from within. I may write very politely on the list, but still there may be fire inside. This is not about how I write on the list, how I feel inside. Internally, during Ardra Dasha, I may be feeling a lot of fire, lot of restlessness. So if I come and tell you, I'm feeling very restless at so many things that are happening around. I want to feel peaceful. Then you should tell me, propitiate Rudra. Do Rudra Namakam, do Rudra Chamakam. Or just read the Ardha Nakshatra's mantra. Then if you do something for Rudra, there will be some happiness. And you take anybody who's running Ardra Sifagi Vimshottari Dasha. After they do Rudravshekam or Rudrahomam, there will be such a big change in their attitude. Until then they will be feeling restless. After they do it, the restlessness will go away. They will feel more at peace. It happened to me, it happened to a couple of other people that I know. Especially if you are under Adra's influence, your mind is under Adra's influence. Doing Rudravshekam and Rudrahomam are very, very auspicious for you. Pardon me? Actually more than temple home. In May we had a Rudravshekam at my house, Rudrahomam. After that there was so much change in me. I was so relaxed, so peaceful. And I used to be like that before Adra's Dasha. Once Adra's Dasha started, I was so restless from within. And after May, I'm more and more peaceful. After that, like you said, so many other Rudra things happened at the temple at my house. But all those things are secondary. The first thing is important. And similarly, Sanjay ji, he's also under Adra's influence right now. So he's also very restless. He's trying to do this Sri Jagannath Center. So many people coming like Rahus and blocking things. And unfortunately, in my case, at least Rahu is well placed. So even if there is some restlessness, I can easily fight. If I am angry, I just fight, and those people are basically put down. But unfortunately for Sanjay ji, Rahu is in the 4th house. So his sukha is destroyed by all those people. So he is very unhappy and restless and during this dasha, during this Adra's dasha. But he also got a Rudravshekam performed at some place in Himalayas. He went to some place in Himalayas, got it done, and he said that after that there was a big change in his views. Anyway, coming back to the point here. Pardon me? Yeah, you can see Arudha Lagna, absolutely. You can see the Arudha Lagna also. So, if you see Ardra, so first thing is, by the nature of Ardra, you can see certain things. Moon is under that influence. Secondly, Rahu, where is he? He is in 6th house. So, lot of fights, quarrels, lot of obstacles, but overcoming them, etc. What else can you say? Now, let's come to the longitude. Ardra extends from somewhere where, this is why I told you, you have to remember the nakshatra Rashi relationship. Mrugashira, 3rd and 4th padas are in Mithuna, Gemini. So Ardra starts at 6 degrees 40 minutes in Gemini and ends at 20 degrees. Okay, so that is the longitude. So it's entirely in the 10th house. So what is the focus of mind? Entirely on karma. On job, not only job, work in the society. This is also my karma. Not just what I do at Broadcom. What I do here, teaching all you guys this is also my karma. All these things. So there is focus on karma, but there is some restlessness about it. Now what else? What else can you say? Are there any sahamas, any important points here? Are there any special lagnas here? Pardon me? Yeah, let's look at sahamas. Any sahamas in Gemini? Anything? Oops, nothing. Nothing. That's too bad. Nothing is getting activated. Is there anything in Taurus? The previous data, let us say. At the beginning of this, there is Santapa Sahamam. There is Jarja Sahamam at the middle of Taurus. Sluggishness. So let us see when that was. So around the middle of Taurus, there is Jarja Sahamam. See, basically sluggishness, laziness. And let us see which nakshatra would that correspond to? Yeah, it said Rohini there. Okay, very good. So Rohini where? It doesn't give the pada. So you have to do the math. Where does Rohini start? 10 degrees Taurus. So it's basically 5 degrees into Rohini. Second pada, but roughly what percentage? 5 out of 30. So roughly what percentage? Roughly 40%. Right? 5 degrees out of 13 degrees. So it's basically roughly 5 out of 30. So that's roughly 5 times maybe 8 or 7. So 5 times maybe 40, between 35 and 40. Let's say 40%. So roughly after Rohini Dasya is over 40%, Moon will be exactly in contact with Rohini. Let me see and let's see if I was really lazy at that time. Let me, I don't remember. It's 95 to 98. How long is that? 3 years, 4 months. 3 years, 4 months means 3 years, 4 months. 3 times 12 plus 4. 40 months. 40 months. So out of 40 months, yeah, out of 40 months, 40%, which is 16 months times 0.4. 16 months. So 1 year and 4 months after this data started, which is
July of 99.
yes. Oh yeah, 1 year, 4 months. So July from around, yeah, from around July 96. So a few months before and a few months after. Basically in 96. In 96, there is a, in 96, middle of 96. It may start a little earlier, go on for a little more. But during this time, there can be some laziness, there can be some sluggishness. And the thing is, here this is my chart. So whatever I tell you, you just have to accept it. But it is indeed true that during that time I was in general lethargic.
But how long though? Sahama is trigger. When there is trigger, when there is end.
If you are talking about something like Vivaha Sahamam, if that is triggered, it's basically marriage. It gives an activity. It gives a particular action. Whereas things like Jyajya Sahamam, they may show being in a lazy mode for maybe a few months.
They also Jyajya.
Pardon me?
They are also slow.
Yeah, Jyajya. And if you say, for example, Labha Sahamam or some Sahamam being activated, there can be sudden some gains. Labha means gain. Artha Sahamam means money. There can be some money. And if you say, for example, Jalapatana Sahamam or Paradesa Sahamam, there can be travel abroad. So So all these are events that happen. So for them there is no long duration. Around the duration, let's say moon is near Pardesha Sahamam. A few months before that or a few months after that, during that window, at one point the event may happen. So these things are events. But things like Jyadya Sahamam, Roga Sahamam, these may be long events. They may not be point events, but they duration events. Somebody may be sick for let's say a month and a half, and Roga Sahamam may be being activated. So there are some Sahamas that show events that are point based, and some Sahamas that show events that are duration based. But in either case, that point or duration occurs in a window. That window is roughly a few months on either side of the time when moon is exactly in contact with that particular thing. Okay? Any other questions?
Can you look at a Saham where when you get married and see
Yeah.
contact?
Yeah, there is no link.
There's no link.
There is no link here. So it's not that it's not a necessary condition. If my progress moon is at Vivaha Sahamam, it's not that then only I will get married. If that is the case, the problem will be I will basically have to wait till I'm 90 years old before I get married. So you can look at other relationships like final relationships, current house relationships, etc. And that is only one condition. That is not a necessary and sufficient condition. That's only basically a necessary condition. Now let us see Sri Lagna. Sri Lagna is a very important Lagna. What is Sri Lagna? Who said well? You, okay. What else? What does Sri Lagna stand for? Sri means it's basically the Lakshmi, the house of Lakshmi, the abode of Lakshmi in your horoscope. Sri means Lakshmi. So Sri Lagna shows Lakshmi's blessing. So it can show getting married, it can show some very important event in your life. Like you said, it can also show becoming wealthy. Whatever prosperity, whatever happiness, whatever blessing Goddess Lakshmi wants to bestow upon you, that will happen when Sri Lagna is activated. So when the progress moon is on Sri Lagna or 7th from it or in a trine from it, you can expect some great blessings during that time. So let us see when that was in my case. Where is my Sri Lagna? Sri Lagna. Oh, not Sahama. Go to longitude, see Sri Lagna. Where is Sri Lagna? Yeah, this has also happened in Kritika only. This is in Kritika, but this is Kritika third pada. So roughly, yeah, after marriage, but exactly when, what is the date? Let us see. So how many degrees in, see, in Kritika already went through 3 degrees 20 minutes in Aries, right? You have to do a little bit of math here. So those of you who are mathematically challenged, just bear with me. In Aries, Kritika Nakshatra starts at 26 degrees 40 minutes. So you have 3 degrees 20, actually let me open Word and do some writing so that you can follow. So Sri Lagna is at 5 degrees 14 minutes. So let us add that to, oh, this is already open, that's why. So let's increase the size. So Kritika in Aries, it had 3 degrees 20 minutes, okay? And in Taurus, we are talking about a longitude which is 5 degrees 14 minutes. So together, Kritika started here, it covered 3 degrees 20 minutes and came to Taurus, and we are at 5 degrees 14 minutes point to reach Sri Lagna. So moon must have travelled by this plus this, which is 8 degrees 34 minutes. So moon must have progressed by 8 degrees 34 minutes in this particular nakshatra to activate Sri Lagna. So when is that? 8.5 roughly, right? 8.5 divided by 13.33. So it's basically 63% out of 2 years. So one year plus 1 year and 3 months. So if you add 1 year and 3 months, that is when moon is exactly on Sri Lagna. So when is that? The previous data. If you add 1 year and, we said 3 months, right? 1 year and 3 months will be 1994 June. So roughly 1994 June, plus or minus a few months. great blessings of Lakshmi will come. See what happened. Actually, it was in 94 January that I started my Lakshmi Puja. I started doing the 108 times. I started reading Lakshmi's 108 names, 108 times each. So I would read the 108 names, I would do again, like that I would do 108 times. I do this on every Friday. At some point of time in Friday I will do it. I've been doing it since 94, January 28. So it was basically a few months before Moon came in contact with Sri Lagna. It was in that vicinity, and actually it was around the July time frame, June-July time frame, that I went to a temple in Tirupati. Near Tirupati there is a place called Tirchanur. There is a Lakshmi temple there. I happened to be there on a Friday. So my Friday puja I did it in the temple, on the temple premises. And until then my thought was to do this puja for 1 year. Because in the Phalasriti of that slokam, of that stotram, it says, Bhagavare Tadam Dhiman Athed Vatsara Matrakam Ashtaishwarya Mavapnuati Kubera Yava Bhutale. Which means, on every Friday, if a person does this stotram 100 times on every Friday, for just 1 year, he becomes like Kubera. He gets all kinds of wealth, becomes so prosperous like Kubera on earth. So I read that, I thought, okay, I want to be like Kubera, I want to be wealthy, so let me do it. So I decided to do it for 1 year. I didn't know if it would be easy or difficult, because in the beginning it used to take 3 hours like that. Now it takes less. But it used to take a lot of time. So I wanted to give it a try, because I wanted to be like Kubera. So I decided to do it. But I don't remember the exact date, but it was around June-July time frame. I went to Tirchanur, I did my puja in the temple premises, and then I decided, I felt so happy, so relaxed. I decided, what is this nonsense between Kubera, getting money? This is all nonsense. That's not what I am doing this puja for. Because at that time I did it for roughly half year. Another half year was left. So I decided I will not only finish the remaining half year, but I will do it for the entire life. I will not stop. I will do it for as long as I am alive. I will do it. I decided. So after that, I've been more happy basically. And everything else that happened to me, like learning astrology more deeply, whatever happened to me, all spiritual happenings, I believe are stemming from that decision basically in 94. So probably, I don't remember the exact date, but it was probably in that vicinity. It was before I went to Korea. So it was definitely in June, July, August time frame. Yeah, it was around that time frame. So probably that is what Moon coming in contact with Sri Lagna made me decide to do that puja for the entire life. Now let us say Ghatika Lagna. When will I become powerful? When will I get big recognition? Ghati Lagna. Suppose I am a politician and you want to predict when I will be a prime minister or president. Where is Ghatika Lagna? It is in Uttara Phalguni. Uttara Phalguni second pada. So Uttara Phalguni second pada is roughly half hour, approximately. So it is basically 4 parts. So 1/4 is over. In the other 4th it is half over. So if we say 8 parts, it is basically 3 parts, 3/8. If you didn't follow, don't worry. It's not really that important. Approximately 3/8. If you look at all the longitudes and do the math, it will approximately be 3/8 of the nakshatra. So Uttara Phalguni Dasha, when roughly 3/8 is over, or maybe half of Uttara Phalguni nakshatra Dasha is over, then some kind of power, some kind of recognition, big name, fame, etc. are possible. When is that? 2034. How old will I be? 74. Towards the end of Sun Dasha. Okay, that was my father's prediction, but not based on this Dasha. Pardon me? Yeah. If you look at, see, the thing is, whenever you are making any predictions based on this, it's a good idea to use the normal Vinchotri Dasha and cross check. Oops, I have to untoggle it. So, from 2038 to 2044 is Sun Dasha. How is Sun in my chart?
This is in 2033, right?
34. No, 2034.
But this is from 38 to 44.
Oh, sorry. It was Venus Dasha. So it's not my part of the prediction. Right, you're right. Venus Dasha. So that time, which Dasha will be running? Venus Saturn Dasha. Is there any chance of any success, fame, etc. in Venus Saturn period? Or Venus and Saturn giving any yogas in this chart? It's a 5th and 9th lord conjunction. Is it a close conjunction? Pardon me? You have to look at the degrees. Venus is 8 degrees, Saturn is 15 degrees. So not very close but close. It's not too far. They are within 10 degrees from each other, within like 8, 9 degrees.
We are always considering a positive aspect of 6 and 9, but we are not considering Saturn as a 6, we also have the effect of 6.
Yes, right. That is right. So he has both the effects, but bottom line is, there is a Raj Yoga also given by Venus and Saturn. It's 6th and 9th lord yoga also. Pardon me? Oh, for Raj Yoga being in 8th house is not a... what it shows is the Raj Yoga may fructify through hard work, tapasya, etc. That's what it shows. But if you see 9th lord, 10th lord, or 5th lord, 9th lord, or 5th lord, 10th lord, etc. together, that Raj Yoga will function anyway. So based on normal Vimshottari Dasha, during 2033-34, there is a Raj Yoga functioning. Now you see the Narayan Dasha. How is Narayan Dasha during that time? What Narayan Dasha would be running? Taurus Narayan Dasha. Is it a good Dasha or bad Dasha? It's the 9th house, first of all. And how do you judge the Taurus Dasha? When you judge the Taurus Dasha, what do you take as Lagna? Because this is, see, Dasha started from Pisces, the 7th house. So in my case, Narayan Dasha is a progression of the 7th house. So in order to see the progress Lagna, you have to take the 7th. Because during this Taurus Dasha, Taurus is the progress 7th house. So the progress Lagna would be Scorpio. So take Scorpio as Lagna and see how things are. So where is the 10th Lord? Lagna Lord is in 10th house, showing some important karma, spiritual karma. And how is the 10th Lord Sun? He is in the 5th house of recognition, following, etc.
Why do you think Lagna Lord is Ketu? Because Mars is more strong.
Yes, yes. I took one Lagna Lord. The other Lagna Lord is Mars. He is quite strong in his own house in the 6th house.
So he gives you Harsha Yoga?
Yeah, he gives Harsha Yoga during this period. But more than Harsha Yoga, this is basically vanquishing enemy. When there is a strong 6th house with Mars in it, it shows vanquishing the enemy. And more importantly, this is Arudha Lagna of the natal chart. So the progress Lagna is on the Arudha Lagna. So this is basically a good Dasha for image and status. See the Dasha Pravesh Chakra. Because that's what we are used to, right? Look at the Dasha Pravesh Chakra. How is it? How is the Dasha Pravesh Chakra? So in this particular Dasha, most of the planets are in 6th house. And 6th and 8th lords have a Parivartana during Viparit Raj Yoga. So overall, what can you say about this Dasha? Lot of obstacles being overcome, lot of karma basically. This is a period of lot of karma, lot of work. So looking at all the factors we have seen so far, this is the 9th house Dasha, from the Dasha Lagna, the 10th Lord is in 5th house, the 2 Sun, who is Yogada in the natal chart also, Maha Yogada, he is in the 5th house of recognition. And normal Vimshottari Dasha, 5th house is activated, 5th and 9th lords are together.
And the sun appeared on your face, so that's definitely not happening.
Pardon?
The sun appeared on your face at that time.
Did he? I didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a nimitta. So all these things together, whatever we saw in the Tribhagi Dasha is basically being, whatever is being shown, now I have some voice. Whatever happened, whatever is shown in the Tribhagi Vimshottari Dasha, he is basically being, he is being confirmed by other Dashas also. So one thing you can predict for me, the class can make this prediction to me, that in 2033, 2034, during that year, there will be some position, some power, some authority, some influence, some following, etc. for me. For me? Some recognition, some award, that kind of things are possible for me during that particular year. But unfortunately, I am not a politician, so I am very surely not going to be a prime minister or president during that time. But there will be some following, some recognition of my work during that time. Like that, you can look at Ghatika Lagna, you can look at Hora Lagna, etc. Now the thing is, not only the Ghatika Lagna, when trines or 7th house from Ghatika Lagna or when they give their results, then also there can be some recognition, etc. Pardon me? Now, for example, take a trine from Ghatika Lagna. Ghatika was where? 1 degree Virgo. So take 1 degree Taurus. So at 1 degree Taurus also there can be some recognition, some rise, etc. So what would that be? That is basically Taurus Dasha. Roughly 94, 93, November, etc. I didn't have any rise or following at that time, but my career started then. Pardon me? Again Kritika. If you do the math, if you see Ghatika Lagna, if you see when the trine from Ghatika Lagna started, you will see that around that time, basically my...
You see that trine in 7th Lord just SLR, GL or any planet also?
Planet also. Planet Sahmas also. Yes. You can look at various Sahmas and then take trines, etc. Now, for example, let's just take a Sahama as an example. Let us say SS Sahama. Actually, that may be too young, but let us see. As an example, let us say SS Sahama. SS Sahama, what does it show? What does SS Sahama show? Fame. SS means Kirti, fame. It is a 2 degree Scorpio. So by the time I become famous, I'll be very old. So let us take the trine. Instead of actual Sahama, let us take trines and 7th house. If you take the first trine, it is 2 degrees Pisces. So that is basically Purabhadra itself. So basically I am too young. So forget it. So take the 7th house. If you take the 7th house from it, that is 2 degrees Taurus. Actually, that is, when is it? That is also 94, 95 time period. Yeah. So not really any fame, but somebody heard about me in Korea and wanted me to come to Korea. I was working in India. I went back after my master's year. I went back. So no real fame. Just a small result was given. So it's a bad example. So, but the bottom line is, if you see SS Sahama, if SS Sahama is activated by moon, it doesn't mean that the person will become famous. So everybody in the world will know about him. For example, after my master's, I went back to India. I was working in India as a software engineer. And then, through some company, somebody in Korea knew about me, and without my asking anybody or giving my resume to anybody, somebody asked me, do you want to come to Korea and work for us? We'll give you salary which is comparable to US salaries. I decided to stay in India, but I said, okay, let me try Korea. I lived in US, I know how US is. Let me live in Korea also and get a taste of the Far East. So I went there. So somebody knew about me without my doing anything about it. So that is some kind of effect. Similarly, now so many people know about me because I am teaching these classes. So many people listen to these classes. This is one kind of effect. So SS basically comes in various flavors. So when you see SS Sahamam, don't assume that he is going to be very, very famous. Similarly, if you see Roga Sahamam, let's take a negative example. Say Roga Sahamam. Roga Sahamam doesn't mean the person has to be, whenever moon is in a trine from the Roga Sahamam or in Roga Sahamam or in 7th from Roga Sahamam, the person doesn't have to be really, really sick. Because sickness comes in various forms again. If somebody is unhappy, that is sickness too. Sickness is not just having fever or having cold. That is one kind of sickness. But being unhappy, being mentally unstable is also roga. It is also unstable. It is also disease. So when you see roga sahamam, it can basically come in various flavors. So again, whenever you see sahamas and use this dasha, take things with a pinch of salt. Don't take them in a very final way. But let us take roga sahamam as an example. Where is roga sahamam? Suppose you have to predict one bout of disease in my life using this dasha. When would you do that? Revati. At the beginning or end of Revati. What percentage of Revati is done? Where does Revati start? 13 degrees 20 minutes, especially 16 degrees 40 minutes Pisces to 30 degrees Pisces. That is the duration of Revati. So here this is almost at the fag end of Revati. So that means at the end of Revati Dasha. When is it? So basically 83-84 time frame. 83-84 time frame, which is when I was in 83-84. I was in 8th grade, 9th grade. Yeah, 8th grade, 9th grade. There was no major sickness, but my health was overall bad when I was in my 8th grade, when I was in 8th class. So, yeah, there wasn't any big sickness that I got during that time, but my health was overall bad. During that time I was frequently getting cold, frequently getting fever. So if you find the exact date when moon was in contact with Rohu Hamam, I'm very sure, if you find the date I will know, but I'm very sure nothing happened on that exact day. But during that whole year, half year plus or minus, during that one whole year, my health was not really very good.
When you actually look at the basic structure,
Yes, Sanjay ji says don't use divisional charts, but I don't see any reason for that. You should be able to do. So, pardon me?
You can use regular.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What you are saying is confirm it using something else. Yeah. Look at 83-84. How is it? Saturn, Venus. Is it possible that during Saturn Dasha, Venus Antardasha, health is not so great? Saturn, he is in the 8th house. So during entire Saturn Dasha, health may not be perfect. But look at the Antardasha. During 82 to 85, it was Venus Antardasha. Venus is the 6th lord in the 6th house. So there is some chance, based on D6 also, there is some chance of ill health. And when you are talking about ill health, along with D6, we talked about another divisional chart. What is it? D30. Look at D30. How is Venus here? He is the 8th lord. So during Venus Antardasha, there is a big chance of ill health. Okay? Now we have gone on too long. We will take some more examples. Meanwhile, try to look at Tribhagi Vimshottari Dasha, look at your own life, see some important events, a few events, see if they make sense. And if something doesn't make sense, we'll take it up in the next class and try to analyze it. And don't yet make predictions based on this Dasha. I also don't rely on this Dasha for making predictions. I use it only confirm things. I use only Narayana, Vimshottari, normal Vimshottari, Narayana Dasha, and Tithi Pravesh, of course, for making predictions. This is basically something that comes in suggestion, something that needs to be refined further. So use it with a pinch of salt, but definitely it is good to experiment with it and get insight. Then we can go further. So before you come to the next class, look at your own chart, look at least 3-4 events, look at various aspects, look at what longitude it corresponded to, any influences on that longitude, and then see if the planet who owns the Dasha, he has any significance in the chart, and try to come up with some analysis. Any questions you have, we will take up in the next class. So we will continue Tribhagi Vimshottari Dasha for another 2-3 classes. With that I will end for today. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.